Careers require pivots, especially when those careers span several decades. Today's guest, Dini Petty, is a Canadian broadcast legend. It's very true. She's been adapting to technological change for literally longer than I've been alive. Dini, welcome to Open Source.
I was going to ask how old you are, but it's okay. I don't want to know. As I'm going to be 80 this January.
Unbelievable. Well, you don't look a day over 78.
I am so old that people say, you could pass for 60. And I go, thank you.
No, honestly,
Yeah.
you look great, and you're so energetic and alive and experienced. And so I guess I want to start right at the beginning because
Okay.
I didn't know this about you, but there's a helicopter involved.
A pink helicopter.
So what was that? You were the first female to pilot a helicopter? What's the story?
I was the first woman in the world to fly a helicopter and broadcast from it. I was the second woman in Canada to get a commercial helicopter license.
Wow.
But I had never thought of flying. I mean, I'd done some skydiving in my wild, impetuous youth, but I never thought of being a pilot. Who wanted to be a pilot? But I was out of a job. And a girlfriend of mine, a model, my mother was Canada's first talent agent. So she moved the office to the front room of our house. So I met a lot of people. Peggy Clarkson said, Dini, I'm going to buy you lunch. We're going to figure out what you're doing for a living. So we go to Castle George for lunch. 3 guys from CKY Radio come in, and traffic reports were huge then. They were all done from helicopters, and each one there was a guy who flew and a guy reported. But at CKY, Bob Carter did both. 3 weeks before the luncheon, Harvey Clark, God bless you, Harvey, goes to the meeting and says, I know how we're going to win the war. We're going to find a girl. We're going to put her up in a helicopter. She's going to fly it and report. She'll wear pink. The helicopter will be pink. We'll get her a pink car. Go find her. Meanwhile, back at the luncheon, the guys are like, where are we going to find a girl to fly a helicopter? And Tommy Vradenberg looked over and he said, see that girl? That's Dini Petty. I know she's crazy enough to jump out of an airplane. Maybe she's crazy enough to fly a helicopter. As he's walking to our table, my friend Peggy has just said, so Dean, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, Peggy. I can't be a secretary. This is long before spell check. I can't spell, but I want to be challenged. I want to use my brains. And there was a tap on my shoulder, and I looked up and I heard the words that changed my life. How'd you like to be the girl in the pink helicopter? But yeah. They paid for all the training, and I flew for 5,000 hours, and it was the most wonderful thing that ever happened.
Unbelievable.
Oh.
So that basically started your journalism career, right?
It did, because in 5,000 hours, I might have done 5 reports an hour, traffic. So that's 25,000 traffic reports, in which I either said, the Parkway northbound is stop and go, or the Gardner westbound is stop and go. And I thought, if I don't get out of this job, I'm going to go crazy.
Right.
So I quit. And City TV was starting, and I called Moses and Ira, and I said, you ought to hire me. And he knew who I was because I had a bit of fame.
Right.
And he hired me.
It's interesting though, right? Because the helicopter thing, it kind of came out of nowhere, right? It was
Duh.
You weren't like, I know what I'm gonna do.
I'm gonna be a pilot.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting with people who have really accomplished careers like yourself, right? Because it seems like very common that there's a bit of an accidental win that happens,
Fate.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my dad used to take us to air shows when I was a kid. I was so bored. So it never crossed my mind. So it was the hand of fate being very kind to me. And I'm lucky. I told you, I'm on my second set of 9 lives. On 9 separate occasions, the options facing me is I would live or I would die. I have escaped every single time unscathed. And I've had one certain death experience, which means I knew I was going to die. Obviously, I didn't, but I thought, yeah, for sure, this is it.
I feel like I want to ask you like 9,000 questions, but we only have like 40 seconds left until the next segment. What's your advice for somebody who wants to be a journalist?
It's a wonderful, wonderful profession. It's opened up tremendously. When my mother started the agency, you either looked like Doris Day or Sophia Loren, or you couldn't work. And now the field is opened up. And it's a field in which you get to use your mind and you get to talk to interesting people and meet
Right.
them. If you can end up in this field, go for it. It's
And
fascinating.
that's why I look like Sophia Loren.
Yes, I
Dini
was going to
Petty
say
here
that.
on Open Source.